Carolyn Doobie here. What's the play for today? Well, today I'm going to be playing in my art journal, and I'm going to be starting the background with something that a lot of people consider to be trash, but I consider it to be treasure a lot of the times. What is that thing? It's disposable paint palette. Now, disposable palette paper is basically just kind of a pad of this sort of waxy-like paper, and you put your paint on it when you're painting, and sometimes I just love how they look. So I save them. Yes, I have a collection of paint palette paper, and one of the ways that I use it is to start an art journal page. Now, here's the other thing that's going to be in this video, is be sure to hang around for the middle where it's the time of oops after oops after oops. And then all the way at the end, you're going to see how this page flashed me back to high school English class and some symbolism and my take on it today. Well, here's the dried paint palette I'm going to use. Now, I need to adhere it down into my art journal, and I could use gel medium or double-sided tape, but to get the whole thing down at once in the fastest, easiest way, I'm going to use the Xyron Creative Station. And basically what you do is you feed it into this thing and it makes a sticker. Now, of course, you can do interesting little shapes and it'll make stickers like that, but I just need to cover a whole lot of real estate here with this quickly, so you can see it's just going to spit out the other end when I crank it. Then I'm going to cut it off, and then I'm going to be able to peel off the plastic and be able to adhere this right into my art journal. Now, the top piece of plastic, that you need to get rid of, so that's gone. It's the bottom piece is where the sticky part is that makes it a big sticker. Now, I know from personal experience that when I pull it all off at once, things will curl up on me, it will stick to each other, and frankly, I don't want that to happen. Of course, I also have to decide which way I want this to go, because if I stick it down, that's where it's staying. But I have learned from experience with myself that I know that if I pull it off too much at once, same thing, a problem I have with packing tape, duct tape, all kinds of tape, anything that's sticky I have this problem with. So I'm just going to adhere part of it down there on the bottom, and then I'm going to pull the backing off and let it, and then just kind of push it down as it goes, and that way I'll be able to get it all down there without it sticking to itself. Well, now I want to put a very painty character on here. All that paint smeared for the background has me thinking about that. Now, the character that I'm using from this stencil, which is available from StencilGirl Products, is probably not meant to be a painter, but I just kind of see Pierre the painter. I think it's the hat on him that has me thinking beret. So I'm going to stencil him on here with black paint and a cosmetic sponge. Now, there's a little bit of a trick or a problem happening here because this is a paint palette, so anywhere that it's white, that's really kind of like a little bit of wax paper that isn't really designed to take paint. The goal is for paint to not stick to it, so I kind of have to work around that a little bit and be careful as I'm sponging or stenciling this on, just because the paint may lift off a little more easily. So now that I've got Pierre here on the page, I want to put a word with it. And I decided to put the word art down at the bottom. I mean, after all, it's a big painty background, and I almost kind of envision his little hands there looking like almost like little paintbrushes permanently attached. Now, to put the word art on here, I wanted something whimsical and playful, so I grabbed my Ransom alphabet stencil, and you'll notice I'm starting with the end of the word first. I'm putting the T first, then the R, and then the A. Now, I'm also very proud of myself that I was able to spell this word backwards without having to write it down anywhere, and I actually got it spelled correctly. And yes, that is something I so have a problem with. Now, you might wonder, why did I start at the end of the word? Well, I knew where I wanted it to end, so that's where I started with. I didn't care where it began, but I knew I wanted it to end on the part of the page, so that's why I will sometimes work from the end of the word instead of the beginning of the word. Well, now I'm going to stencil some more on the white part here, so that's right on the sort of wax paper surface, so it's a little iffy how well it's going to stick, using Mary Beth Shaw's 8x8 stencil. Now, it wasn't quite long enough, so all I'm going to do is line it up and then stencil those last couple of squares to fill in that area. Well, this is what I like to call the oops portion of the page. I wanted to write on top of that paint, and I knew Dina Wakley's scribble sticks would have no problem writing on top of the dried paint. The only problem is I didn't like how it looked. Nothing wrong with all the supplies, it just wasn't what I was after. So, what am I going to do? I'm going to try another color, see if that makes a difference to me, although it really didn't. This is what I'm going to call an oops. But the good news is that these react to water. So I'm going to grab a wet baby wipe, and if I wipe that along it, it is just going to magically remove the scribble sticks. It was like it never even happened. Now, what I figured is I was just going too light. I needed to go with a darker scribble stick because I so want to get writing on here. Like, I'm really fixated at this point on getting some scribble journaling on here. But there is a little sense of hesitation, I have to tell you, because the last time I wrote on this, it wasn't quite right, and I thought how color was too light. but there's something in me that's kind of going, not so sure if that's really the case. So I'm trying to decide, do I write on this with the darker scribble stick or do I not? Should I? Should I take that risk? Should I not? And you know what? I finally just kind of said to myself, pick something. Just do something. You're spending way too much time here thinking. So I started writing with that scribble stick. Now, the second that I started actually writing with it on there, it didn't quite feel right. I knew almost instantly, oops, this is an outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly. This is not what I was after. So along comes the baby wipe again, and I wipe that stuff right off. Well, now I'm going to try. I'm still fixated on getting some writing on here, so I'm going to grab a fountain pen. But remember that the surface here is a little damp, and it's kind of rough and bumpy. So not really ideal for using a fountain pen, but that's not going to deter me because I'm getting splotches and blotches. I'm just going to keep on writing on this to see if I can't get it to turn out the way that I keep trying to get it to do for my head. But you know what? Really not going as planned here. All a giant oops. Outstanding opportunity presenting suddenly because I'm still not happy with how it looks. So what am I going to do? I'm going to keep trying some more writing, seeing if that helps. FYI, it doesn't. Except that this ink does not wipe off so neatly with a baby wipe. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to grab some paint that kind of matches the paint that's already on the palette, and I'm just going to start to cover it up. Now, is some of the ink going to smear in the process? Yep, a little bit. But you know what? I actually like it buried under here. So it turns out the oops of all that writing, there was an opportunity in it, even if I couldn't see it in the moment. I totally like how it looks buried under the paint. And then I start thinking, wow, I wish I had more writing on the page that I could cover up with paint. Well, magically, I can make that happen. So what I did is I started doing some writing on different areas of the colors just to try and get some of it on there because I'm going to come along and just cover it and bury it back in paint. So putting some here, putting some there, just building up the background layers with this. Now this page started with that random painting that was on that paint palette. And sometimes you just need a place to start. And that's why I include something called Sparks of Artspiration in each and every one of my newsletters that I send out each week. And by the way, you can use the link to get signed up. That way you'll get the next Spark of Artspiration. Because again, sometimes just having a place to start gets the ball rolling, and that's what those sparks are, something you can print out, download, and use in your play. Now, while I was playing around with Mary Beth Shaw's hash mark stencil here, I started thinking about English class. Yeah, flashing back to high school for some reason. And it got me thinking about all those discussions after reading texts about symbolism and what the different things meant. And what does it mean that I was putting this hash mark on here? What does it mean that I had those empty squares at the top of the page? What's the significance here, the symbolism? Because we were always told that there was all this symbolism to things. So I started wondering, okay, so what's the symbolism of those boxes up there? They're empty, yet there's all this color everywhere else. Is that because art is whatever you want it to be, whatever you interpret it to be? So those boxes are empty because each person fills it in with their own thoughts about it? Well, that led me to put the word make at the top because I totally am a big fan that everybody make art. So I'm going to spell the word make up there. And this time I'm starting with the beginning of the word because that's where I want it to start. So that's where I'm going to go with my alignment. Now, by the way, did I put those empty squares up at the top because I was thinking about all that deep symbolism of, meaning of art to different people? No. I just kind of had the impulse. I thought, oh, that'll look kind of nice up there. Let's see what happens. It was not some kind of deep philosophical reason. But I did realize I think I want some of those squares, those boxes, down at the bottom, so I just added a few down there. So now let's talk a little more of the symbolism that might be happening on this page. I mean, after all, again, I'm flashing back to that high school English teacher and all the times that they tried to convince me of the symbolism in certain things that I just didn't quite always buy. But I'm going to add more color here to different areas of the page, and there is some very deep and meaningful symbolism in this. Now, do you see that pink and orange area? As I'm working on the brighter colors around it, and then I'll deepen up the oranges and the pinks in there in the middle. As I'm doing all of this, this is representing the conflict between the different parts of us when we're creating. That part of us, sometimes there's almost like a beast inside that, the storm brewing that you have to create, at least for me, which is called being in a bad mood if I don't get my playtime, in which case my family sends me down to play. Now, is that the significance, the symbolism, the meaning behind what I'm doing here? No, not really. So sorry, I'm just not that deep. I was having fun with the gelatos and the colors, and I love smearing it around with my fingers, so that's really what's going on. Well, thanks so much for joining me for today's play and walk down memory lane to English class. Now, the play doesn't have to end here. If you'd like to get my Sparks of Art inspiration, just get signed up for my newsletter and there'll be one waiting for you as soon as you've joined. And of course, if you hit that subscribe button for my YouTube channel, you'll know as soon as I have another video out. Thanks so much for letting me be a part of your colorful journey.